we've talked a lot about the Anunnaki here and there, but can you tell me about their general history from the beginning? Like, where did they come from originally, and why did they come to Earth?
Depends what you call such. Again, Anunnaki is just a term for visitors to the sky, right?
Right.
So the whole group was the Aeriferes, what we're aware of. Many different races and species, you can also identify them if you wish to with a certain federation.
Okay.
Mostly human, from what we're aware of. Partially, some might have some reptilian DNA, but those that we would refer to as such were simply a conglomeration of different human species and races throughout the cosmos, or well, one species but more or less different human races that came together for their own idea of colonization, conquering, or as they would call it, pacifying and liberating, which is just the airy fairy term for conquest, really. Like the United States claims to not conquer any more countries, right? But liberating, for example, Middle Eastern countries from their oil, right? Those kind of very fine diplomatic terms are usually being used by different cultures. Those, for example, that don't wipe out a civilization and instead help the peoples that live on the planet, yes? Very often to the demise of other civilizations or cultures with their previously, such as a reptilian one on your planet, or simply the well-being of the planet. We're more like environmentalists, so to speak. We might wipe out a civilization, but very often it's for the betterment of the whole, of the rest of the planetary well-being, of the planetary soul, you could say. Now, from this perspective, obviously, we are the good guys, they're the bad guys, and vice versa. Nobody claims to be the bad guy out there. But those particular groupings that you consider perhaps Anunnaki, or at least the ones we talked about previously, are those that first arrived on your planet during the time that you would consider now Cretaceous period, right? The
Oh,
last
wow.
era where some of our species were present, and they certainly played a large role in the structure of this culture with their murderous ideas they later considered natural catastrophe. Now, after that happened, they started to manipulate and play with the genes we previously touched upon this briefly, of two hominid species of bladders that were well primitive and evolved there. Remind you of the Neanderthals, for example, right? They don't
Right.
look very much for what people on Earth would look now. Native Americans might have some reference, not because they're genetically similar, they just might slightly remind you, because for whatever reason, there's some similarity in the lack of hair on their body and the longer hair on the head that they grew. Otherwise, not that similar anyway. Just the most greatest reference point we can bring to you at all. Now, they manipulated them because they decided they wanted to have slaves to mine for them, right? That was the original inception of what you consider the origin of your particular human species, at least as far as you are Earthlings, right? That's what they created there. However, this worker that they produced, there was a mixture of the genes of those two races as well as all of their genes, which is already a lot of different extraterrestrial human races combined together, which was a long period of prodding and probing and conflict and pain and suffering because many of their races needed to be killed off again. So they committed numerous genocide to produce what they finally considered was a good worker for them. And when we're going on hand in here, you probably have to fill some water in the vessel. It's going to be a longer topic.
Okay.
Now, the ideas what then emerged was the ancestor of what you might consider the modern day Aborigines of Australia, yes?
Okay.
At least those are the ones that are genetically most close. However, once they left the planet after they had mined everything they wanted, they tried to wipe out this also and didn't succeed entirely, and then they just left, yes? They just left their unfinished experiment behind. It was just created to be slaves, basically, to work for them in the mines. Then those slaves mutated, yes? So it's not like the Darwin person was entirely incorrect, there was still mutation happening in addition to manipulation. And what became of then was the modern day, what you consider Australian Aborigines, which looked very close at least to this particular race. As well as the modern day African, Central African, Sub-Saharan, whatever, those particular genetic strains located mostly in Central Western Africa of today. And that was the hominid population that they basically left behind, that just existed there for the longest time. Which is likely also the reason that they got enslaved numerous times in the history that they later had in their conflict with other races that much later came to planet Earth. Because that was programmed in their genes, and they were left with this legacy of, again, not the evil reptiles or other species that toss with your genetics, but your very own kind that had left you there, which also gave you a lot of creation myth of them being the good guys and others being the bad guys, yes? Now, there obviously were also many of us that in the meantime intersect as well as our non-human species, and yes, we also played with the genes of those people. Many of them were used for sex slaves, others were also used for physical labor, others were used for food, etc. We weren't pretending to have been nice guys either. And there are also insectoids that mess with some of those. We just turned the whole thing into a zoo basically, but it's also because our experiment would have been originally there when everything was peaceful, in pristine condition, perfect environmental. Well, we're not going to get in there. We talked about it previously. We both shared the idea of having the Jurassic Park idea as a better scenario, but it was destroyed, and what was left was a human hairless monkey problematic situation. Which we had the best of them. We had conflict with the groupings. You might consider Aries, Anunnaki, Federation, whatever. Different groups of a human nature and some non-human nature of a mammalian conflict idea that then interfered. We had to leave. We destroyed many of their ships, but we didn't have much interest in their either. It was we were referring to KALASK here, of the entire empire. Some groups were just aware of due to the imperial affiliation with planet Earth at the time we were not present. But they managed to at least destroy many of those ships, but ultimately we left. So, then those beings came on Earth again. They saw what had happened, they rearranged the genes once again. This time with different intention, that they fixed their morals, so to speak, to extend that suddenly everything like this was horrible. And then they just wanted to have the experiment go in peace, and then they created what you consider on purpose newer races. The bluish race, for example, that then also exists on Atlantis at the time, yes?
Okay.
And then venture off again. That was still long ago before those people that landed Atlantis later became what you consider perhaps the modern white people, and by the way, existed on the northern part of Atlantis before they settled to Europe, not in the Caucasus, many people might believe. So the Caucasian terms perhaps rather misleading. Northern Atlantean might be a better classification for this idea. And again, those people aren't necessarily like Northern Scandinavians, so I might be either. They were still somewhat different and just would look like much like those. Some of those also were like an Asian look that set later again on the Lemurian continent, but that was not a time frame that were also connected to what you saw in the Anunnaki grouping, because they joined them later on. However, those that conducted most of the genetic experiment that then later resulted in the idea of having yet another race of builders, where this particular Nordic group was not part of the Anunnaki group, or perhaps they were, depends on what your definition is, but were not part of the original creators of the humankind, even though they passed themselves off as such. Those were simply the rulers in Atlantis. Yes? Those were the ones that taught people also the idea of nuclear fission, those ideas, technological advancement, and they are also the ones that did not just create slaves, but had their idea, let's just see what happens if you splice our genes and mix them with those native beings that are seeming to live there, or mostly at this part of the Northern African region where they adventured. So their intention wasn't to create slaves, but more their idea of just play around with genes that they had just learned, genetic splicing, from other civilizations. And they are also the ones that landed on Maldives, as we previously mentioned, and had a Mars civilization in time, which then later also became the Venusians that then ventured off to their solar system, where they still exist today. What for me are familiar, the Centaurus system we previously talked about, right?
Okay.
Those would be the ones that would likely be considered the ancestors of the Northern European peoples, but there were also a lot of conflict between them and the people they mixed their genes with, because they were all kind of different conflicts. We previously already touched upon those that considered genetic mixing great idea, but only between certain groups, and then those that were the result of this mixing concerned their own existence, of course, to be perfectly acceptable, but they should go further mix, while others thought it was perfectly acceptable. And the whole trauma you went on through numerous civilizations over and over again, and those that are a result of miscegenation considered it to be the final stage, and some others then considered it an abomination, and those that produced this miscegenation wanted their offspring to then remain pure, at least to the degree that they had produced them, and then they perpetuating what their parent race did, so to speak, against their wish. As you're familiar in your own families, when your parents tell you to do something, you very rarely do it, but when you see them doing something, you emulate their own behavior, right? Like the father tells the children not to drink alcohol, but he himself gets drunken. And then you wonder why the children later drink too, correct? Even though he told them not to.
Right.
That idea. But of course, those trauma has been programmed in your genes. It's not like monkey or hairless monkey see, hairless monkey do. It's also programmed in your genes to separate the whole idea of good and evil and see either the dragon beings and evil and the humanoid ancestors as good, or sometimes vice versa, I guess. Or the whole idea of forming civilization and creating hierarchy, for example, is also something you learn from numerous ancestral civilizations, and your tendency to fall down and worship, which was also obviously used by us as well as others, but we are not the programmed ones in your genes. That's the original creators of the primitive hominids. They were originally engineered during the Cretaceous period, when yes, humans and dinosaurs existed together for quite a while, before the cataclysm.
So, I know time is malleable, but can you give me an idea, like how long ago the Anunnaki created this slave race to work in the mines in Africa? I mean, was it millions of years ago or like tens of thousands of years ago?
Approximately 65 million.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
Those are much different hominids than what you are today. Again, the Australian Aborigines are the ones that might still be closest to those, but only after mutation.
So like, can you tell me roughly how long ago the so-called hairy monkeys of Africa first appeared, like the gorillas and chimpanzees and so on?
Not precisely. Those were just selling the same genetic strain. They more likely evolved separate from your so-called hominids. They're likely later. They were more.
Okay.
They were a different offshoot and evolved naturally from we're aware of.
Okay. Can you tell me how the Anunnaki are connected to the Illuminati families?
Again, this was much later and depends on you consider Anunnaki. The last genetic splice from we're aware of happened a million years ago, when those that we previously mentioned are the ones that landed on the North Atlantean Peninsula and didn't so much genetically engineer but simply fuck the beings there, mostly the females, yes, and impregnate them, and then create what you consider perhaps modern, the white races, later actually Asiatic races, yellow races, yes. And then from there on emerged something like a beast caste, which were still the original Anunnaki family line. Now, obviously the few of those that survived became European aristocracy much, much later, but it's literally hundreds of thousands of years between there. Now, between them is tens of thousands of years before Atlantis sank. Then once Atlantis went underwater, those people moved over to mostly Egypt, to some degree Middle America, founding cultures there, right?
Okay.
Numerous racial connections happening there, numerous cultures being formed there, and there are a lot of priest castes and more water.
Okay.
Priest castes were formed there as well as aristocracies, particularly Egypt, obviously. But from there on, then also venturing off into Asia as well as Europe, over India, then finally China, Japan, and to the west over Greece, Rome, and then to the modern what you consider aristocracy. However, those were originally what you consider perhaps Illuminati, just as the Hebrew version, where there are several most racially influenced by their cultures, were originally not Illuminati, and it hadn't happened until approximately 1,000 years ago, when certain members of the empire were able to turn them around, so to speak, put them on a pedestal and gave them their own teaching. So that was after the Moses, Jesus person given their ideas, as you might be familiar, and later on the person as the Karl Marx idea came back to completely dismantle the richest terms anyway at this particular point. And there was also a conflict with the Martin Luther person, which also led, by the way, to the creation of what you might consider perhaps the ancestors of the German space program, yes. That at this particular point obviously has nothing to do with spacefaring civilization, simply an idea that broke away from the group that you consider the Illuminati at the point, which had taken over the Catholic Church, yes. So there's a great connection from the Atlantean priesthood over into the European aristocracy and priesthood over there, which at this particular point in time had become what you might consider the modern day Illuminati idea, at least during the medieval times, when the Catholic Church became more and more such a construction, yes, an Illuminati construction. Again, this particular group that later broke off, but then again, obviously, the Empire later got a foot in the door again once it became spacefaring. But as far as the Illuminati concerned at this particular point in time, they also ventured off from the Catholic Church and got more in the financial sector because the power was shifting from religion to finances. Also thanks at least to the Marx person.
Okay.